Hello, Brother Sewing and Crafting family. The brand ambassadors are back on the Brother Sews Facebook and YouTube page. I'm Angela Wolf.
And I'm Joanne Banko. Good morning, everybody.
Hey, Joanne, how are you?
I'm good. I'm great. Thank you. It's been such a great summer here.
I have to tell you, I was talking about you yesterday, if your ears were not ringing, but during my live show, I was saying you were coming on to do bobbin work, to show us some bobbin work, and the comments were amazing. First of all, a lot of people didn't even know what that was. They're like, does it work on my machine? I said, I actually have never officially tried it. So you are the guru of this, and I cannot wait. So everybody, if you've never been here before, say hi, say where you're from. We always love to see you. Joanne and I have been on It's So Easy together. We hang out with you guys on Saturdays on Brother Sews, and we're thrilled to have you here with us today. So Joanne,
it's great to be here. Oh, well, I am trying to organize. Ha, 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 ha. Famous last words, right? I've designated October as organization month. So I hope to do some special blog posts. I've got like ideas this long of how to kind of reorganize them.
You said October. I actually just emailed a couple people with different dates in September, but I accidentally wrote October. So it is September officially.
It is, but I'm giving myself a month to get geared up for it because it'll take me that long.
Awesome. Well, I see a lot of our fans rolling in. Hi, everyone. Great to see you.
It's great to see everybody. I hope everybody's doing well, staying safe and doing well.
So what do you have for us? Because I can hardly wait to see this.
Well, let me just tell you a little bit about my own personal history with bobbin work. I know there are a lot of people that it's maybe a foreign word, foreign term, a technique that they've never thought about or tried. But believe it or not, I started playing around with bobbin work in the early 80s. I had nothing more than an ordinary zigzag machine. I came from an industrial background, so until I started using Brother machines, I never really felt there was anything that compared to an industrial machine. Now I know different, and my industrial machine has literally been collecting dust and hasn't been turned on for a long, long time. But I came from an industrial background, so I didn't have a sewing machine. Believe it or not, I didn't even own a sewing machine that had any decorative stitches. I had a zigzag machine that I used for buttonholes and a couple other functional things, but that was it. But I started just really getting intrigued with embellishment, even back before embroidery existed. And I don't even know what got me thinking about bobbin work, but I took a bobbin case from that machine. It was the old standard, front load kind, the kind that we like, oh, how did we ever work with these? We're so spoiled by the top loading. And I bought a second bobbin case and played with the screw. I know. Never do that, right? It's like, But I played with the screw and I wound some special floss around a bobbin, and I just started stitching with it. And I did several different things. I did a shirt where I did the whole yoke just by drawing outlines of leaves, and then I stitched with a straight stitch all those leaves using bobbin work. But the whole theory behind bobbin work is that you are stitching upside down. So decorative threads, thick threads, and I'll be showing a few in a minute, but things that normally would never go through the needle, you can wind on a bobbin. And then that means that you have to stitch upside down because your featured thread is on the bottom side instead of the top side where our normal thread is. So because you've done so much with, especially like top stitching. I know that's one of your fortes, and there's only a certain thickness of thread that you can use in the needle of a sewing machine. They're not designed for anything other than normal thread to be used on the top. So by using that special bobbin, it just opens up a whole big world. So I'll show you a few options, and then I'm going to talk about all the little technical things. But for example, this is sock yarn. And I like to joke that I have a closet full of yarn, and I don't know how to knit or crochet anything. So I use it only for embellishment.
So, Joanne, could you spell that?
Sock, S-O-C-K, like what you would literally, like a knitter would knit socks out of this weight of yarn. It's just a very thin, I don't know the gauge because I'm not up on all that, but I'll talk a little bit about how you select that. I know this works. It's actually called sock weight. Another one that I like to use is crochet cotton. So standard, ordinary.
Oh, I love crochet cotton. It's so delicate.
Oh, it's beautiful. And look at this color. Look how beautiful these variegated colors are. This works really, really well for bobbin work. I spent many, many years playing with decorative serger threads, and I know there's still some available. Check your local brother dealer. They're the ones that would carry this type of product, because there's all different brands now, all different names, but something that we used to call ribbon floss, I think this is still available, or something similar to it. This can also be used for bobbin work. Again, would never, ever, ever go through a needle. There are threads that come on spools that look like this. And this would be
that's beautiful.
Another thick thread that we would commonly use in the serger, in the loopers of the serger, because the serger has the same criteria that a sewing machine has. The needles can only take standard normal thread, but when you put something thick in the looper, that's another subject for another whole day. But I literally have bags. I'll show you one of my messy bags full of this type of thread, and this is only one. I probably have 4 or 5 of these. Another choice is silk ribbon. Again,
oh, I like that.
No way to sew this through a needle, but wind it onto a bobbin and stitch upside down, and you've got something, really, really spectacular. What it really does, here's another spool, something that's just thick and a little bit glittery. Now, the one criteria that you really do have to be careful of is that everything you use that you would wind onto the bobbin has to be smooth. So you can't have anything with slubs in it, or any kind of mixed texture. It has to have one consistent texture throughout the whole strand. And in order to wind the bobbin, it's usually best done by hand. So you can see the bobbin that I have here. I've just simply threaded that sock yarn through the top hole, and then I would just hand wind it very carefully, very slowly. And you want to do it until it's about, maybe about 85% full. You don't want to fill the whole thing, but you want to, wind that nice and smooth. I have to say I have wound sometimes on using the bobbin winder or the machine by bypassing the tension disc, but that's you got to have a little bit of extra experience to do it that way. But once you've done that, then I'm going to clip that top, and we've got a bobbin wound with that sock yarn. Now,
Joanne, that was so easy. I mean, I'm watching some of the comments on here, people saying, oh my gosh, you're telling me that I can wind anything on the bobbin and sew with it. Tasha said her mind is blown right now.
I'm telling you, and we'll get into some more of the details on, but you as far as the type of yarn or thread or embellishment that you would use, like I said, just make sure that it's smooth, and that it's has an even texture, and that it's relatively thin. And you'll see more about that when I show you the actual bobbin case, because that's where it all comes into play. You have to have a specialty bobbin case in order to do this, because this type of bobbin case has the screw already loosened, so you're not messing with the tension on your real bobbin case that you're using for all your sewing and embroidery. And when you put the bobbin in, I'm going to go ahead and drop it in just like you would a normal bobbin, and you go right through the tension. This should be able to pull very freely. So I'm getting a little bit of resistance on this one, and that would mean that this particular thread is still possible to use it, but I would need to then adjust the tension on that screw. So the Brother bobbin case that we use for bobbin work has come with a few different models. So if somebody, maybe they didn't even know they had it, and they've got a machine, the current Luminaire doesn't come with this, but some of the past models did, and it will be in your accessory case. However, there's a Bobbin Work kit that is available, and that's available for a multitude of Brother machines. And in that kit, you get this gray bobbin case, you get the tiny little screwdriver, you get, I believe you get a new bobbin case cover, And then you also get a CD that has designs on it that you can print and transfer onto your fabric, and you can do bobbin work with free motion. Now, I'm not very good at free motion. I'm better stitching lines that are, that are drawn. But if you're good with free motion, you can use your free motion foot and do it.
I'm so excited to hear that. I didn't realize that because I love doing free motion. So I think
you can do it that way too.
Yes.
So I think I got another bobbin here. Let me pop this one because this one is a little bit thinner thread. That spool that I showed you before, that's much thinner than that sock weight yarn. So I'm going to pop this one in. I know I just used this bobbin case, so I know with a little bit of a thinner thread, it's going to work just fine. So yeah, because I want to show you how it should reel off. Do you see how easily I'm pulling that?
Right.
That's the way it should feel. If it's not pulling freely like that, if you're getting any little bit of a tug, then you're going to want to go ahead and loosen that screw. Now, again, the beauty of it is that this bobbin case is never going to be used for regular sewing. So playing around with that screw is not going to be an issue. A little tighter, a little looser is all that you're going to do. And that's the area where you do gain a little bit of experience from doing it. But if you start off with spools of thread that would normally be used for decorative serging and work with those for a little while, you won't have to, mess around with that a whole lot. You should be good to go. And then when you thread it into the machine, you actually do just like you would for a normal bobbin, except bypass the cutter because you don't want to get the thicker threads hung up on the little cutter blade that's on there. So obviously what this means is you're going to have to change the bobbin case that's currently in your machine. You want to maybe pop over to your Luminaire and we can just talk a little bit about how that's done.
I will, Joanne. Actually, I'm sorry. I was running down to the other side of my studio because I just saw someone said, "Hey, Angela, did you find your bobbin kit?" Because I have one. Lucy has one. But
okay.
I have never used it, but I forgot to look for it. So I didn't see it in that one spot. But I do have my machine ready to show them something cool. So Lucy, thanks for bringing it up. I got to find it, though, because I'm really intrigued by this, especially when we show them all your samples. So
remember, again, you may have this bobbin case already if you had a previous model machine that it was included with. But if you don't, then you can go to your brother dealer and you can order the Bobbin Work kit, and it will have the bobbin case, the screwdriver, the CD, and I believe the extra bobbin case cover. So you'll be good to go. And for lots and lots of machines.
Over here, and you just tell me what you want me to show on here.
Okay, so the first thing that you would have to do in order to replace the bobbin case, and I wonder how many of you have ever taken your bobbin case out of the machine. I realize that not everybody has done that. Maybe you've taken the throat plate off and clean the little dust bunnies out of there. In fact, when you switch to do bobbin work, it's a great time to clean the dust bunnies out of your machine. But if you've never taken that plate off, you may be surprised. That's why we suggest, getting your machine. If you use your machine a lot, you probably should have your local brother dealer give it a little service tune-up, maybe once or twice a year, because you have some things in there that they can clean out. But the first thing you need to do is take off the throat plate. Now, many of us have had machines where we need a screwdriver to do that. And that's why they invented this handy dandy brother screwdriver. We call this the SAM. We call this the SAM screwdriver because it has 3 ways. It can go standard for your needle. It can be used on this when the screw is, the tip is inside. It can be used on this end for tightening your hoops. And then if you need to remove your throat plate from your machine, then you can use it this way. However, you just performed a magic trick.
You were small on the screen just so they can see that screwdriver.
Okay. I was just saying, you just performed a magic trick. Okay, so this would be to take the throat plate off. You would need it because it's short and you can get in there and you could take that off really easy. This way you would use it if you're going to put a presser foot on or off, put a needle in, and then if you flip it all the way in, so the tip is on the inside, then you have a hole here, and that will perfectly go around the screw on a hoop so that you can tighten or loosen your screw on your hoop. So it's a three-way tool. But like I said, you were over at the Luminaire there, and you just performed a magic trick, because with one flip of a switch, you popped off that whole plate. So once you have that, you are definitely spoiled by it.
I love this too, because you can change from this needle plate to the single hole so quickly. So you just pop this like this. I turn the machine off first, by the way. And there you go.
You are correct. Let's make sure. Yeah, that's a good point to remember. Otherwise, the machine will holler at you, and you'll have to turn it back off and then turn it back on.
Yes, and there's the bobbin case.
There's your standard bobbin case. That would come out, and then the new one would simply. Did you find some dust?
Oh yeah.
The new one would drop in. Now, let me give you just one word of caution, because again, we're going a little bit outside maybe our comfort zone of sewing. We all know how to put feet on and put needles in and out and do some things with tools, but maybe we're a little intimidated sometimes messing around with some of the mechanics. Brother, again, has made it very easy for you, because the bobbin case has a marking on it. It's a little triangle, and it's a little bit hard to see, so I don't know if you'll be able to show it, but there's a trust me, there's a triangle on the bobbin case, and there's a dot on the inside of your machine. And when you match those two places, it's towards your thumbnail. And when you match up those two places, that's where your bobbin case should go in. And then you always want to make sure that it sits in there perfectly flat. So why don't you go ahead and put that one back in, just so everybody can see how it looks. Oh, you're cleaning.
Clean this hot mess. My goodness. You could tell this isn't even that old. You could tell I've been working a lot on here.
Doesn't take much, and that's why you really should clean out your own. That's like the only maintenance thing basically there is for you to do, is to take that cover off periodically and clean the dust out. And the more you sew with cotton and natural fibers, the more dust you're going to accumulate.
All right.
So you're going to drop that back in. That's why we call it a drop-in bobbin case, because it drops right in. And again, if we could see it really close, we would see the arrow and the dot match up together. But you see how nice and flat you have that in there? I want you to do just one more thing. Put your finger on the bobbin, and just like you had your fingertip on there a minute ago, and wiggle it just a little bit from right to left. See how there's a little bit of movement in there?
Yeah.
That's the way it should be, okay? So if it's not moving, you know you haven't done something correctly. It should wiggle just a little bit from side to side, just that little bit. Yeah.
Isn't there? I think there's like a song about that. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle.
There might be. I know there's a tutorial on the Brother Stitching Social blog post site that I did showing how to remove a bobbin and replace a bobbin on a machine that does not have that pop-up cover. So you'll want to definitely look for that. If you can't find it, then tag me in Facebook, and I will shoot you a link directly to it. But it's very important that you do that in a certain order. So
that looks great.
And there you can see. And then that bobbin case cover, that actually has something. It's a little hard to see, but if you ran your finger over that, there are two little bumps on there. And we didn't used to have those bumps. We never had a bumpy bobbin case cover, until they invented Bobbin Work for the machines. Because when you're doing bobbin work and you have this thicker thread, there's going to be a little bit of a different pull on it, a little bit of tension. And so that bobbin case cover helps keep that bobbin firm and flat and staying down where it should be in the actual bobbin case.
That's a great tip. So, by the way, looking back at my bobbin here, is this what you were talking about? I just want, for those that don't know, when you said keep it out of the cut area. So
yes.
After you throw your bobbin in, you don't wrap it around this section here, do you?
I go all the way to the end where I normally would cut, but then I don't cut.
Okay.
So instead of sweeping the thread across that cutter, I leave it there. And I think if we go back over to your station where you can show some images, we actually have a picture of that where I'm showing that.
All right, I'm back.
And how that's done. So now we know about the threads that we need to use. And again, I should just mention, what do you use in the top? Well, in the top, you use normal sewing thread. You could use monofilament if you wanted to. If you were going to do a lot of bobbin work and you were going to be switching the bobbins out, and you're going to use, gold 1 minute and red another, and, green another time. You might want to use a clear, good quality, we call it monofilament generically, clear thread in your needle, because that way it'll blend with everything. But generally, I like to use just a good quality sewing thread or an embroidery thread that matches whatever embellishment thread I'm using for my bobbin work. Okay, so that's what goes in the top. Now we know what goes in the bottom. What about stitches and what about adjustments? Well, you can use everything from a simple straight stitch to, doing the free motion like we talked about, or decorative stitches. And that's where I get really excited about doing this. I don't know if you remember.
I have some of your images. You want me to bring them up?
Sure. Why don't you bring up the one where the thread and the bobbin are in the machine and it shows the thread already threaded. But I don't know how many of you might remember silk ribbon embroidery. I know it's still done. I know people still do it. But there was a period of time there where it was the hottest thing since the toaster. I mean, it was just, everybody wanted to do it. And it was all done, obviously, tediously by hand. Well, for me personally, bobbin work done with these embellishment threads, using the decorative stitches built in, the beautiful decorative stitches built into your Brother machine, it imitates silk ribbon embroidery by hand. And then, of course, I said you can even use silk ribbon. Your decorative stitches, you do need to be a little bit careful which ones you pick. And by the way, I'm doing a special tutorial. I have one on my own website, but I'm also doing a special tutorial for Brother this month that will combine with a project that is already done and will be posted on the website with a free design, not a bobbin work design, but a free embroidery design that combined. So you could see there, that was on the set of It's So Easy TV. I did bobbin work once or twice on It's So Easy TV, and you can see you can see that same chunk of red yarn.
Yeah.
The same type of things that I showed. Now I also have, and again, it's a small picture, but I'll just mention it. I also have a spool of normal, standard, ordinary ribbon that would be very similar to the silk ribbon that I showed as far as the size of it. But that was one of my things that I showed what not to use, because anything that's stiff is not going to work for bobbin work. So again, it's got to be as flexible as thread would normally be, but it can be thicker than normal thread would be. So for decorative stitches, she's got it. Very good, Susan.
Everyone's going to have that stuck in their head today. All right, let me get my beaver.
Okay, so see if you can find the one that I've got a matching bobbin and a matching spool of thread that looks similar to this, but it's like a cream color.
Okay, hold on.
And that just shows you that you want to pick a thread that matches or blends, or disappears. Monofilament would disappear, and everything else would just blend. You are not going to really see that thread. You shouldn't really see it when you're stitching. You might see it if you're doing straight stitches or if you're doing free motion. That just shows a little bit of close-up of a couple projects that I did, sachets, where I just took a circle of fabric and did all kinds of different bobbin work with decorative stitches. And it just, again, doesn't that look like you hand embroidered that?
Oh, I love that.
You never see all the dimension in a picture, but and then I did decorative stitch on a scarf. I did decorative stitches on the tea towel there. And that was actually done in the embroidery mode using our embroidery decorative stitches. So that bird was an embroidery design, but it's an example of what you could do by simply drawing lines on your fabric and then stitching upside down. And, again, you've got something really textured. So it's ideal for those delicate kind of fabrics or drapey fabrics and drapey garments and scarves and things where you don't want anything stiff. Bobbin work is very soft and very supple. So thanks, Jen.
Marcia has a quick question for you. Should the ribbon be 1/8 of an inch or 1/16 of an inch?
It can be up to 1/8 of an inch. I've used 1/8 of an inch silk ribbon. 1/16 of an inch would be the 2 millimeter approximately. And the silk ribbon, this one's 4 millimeters. So this is the widest one you would use. You'd never go wider than this. Skinnier is better. Narrower is better because it will form a more even looking stitch. The thicker the thread is, the more space it takes up in the actual decorative stitch. So while we're talking about that, let's talk about choosing decorative stitches. And again, a lot of this will be in the tutorial, but you can see there from the ones that I used, those are already done with a thick thread, and you can still see some open space in most of them. The one, the red that looks like a triangle, that was done with the sock yarn. So that's the thickest of anything. But still, that was a relatively open stitch. So when you pick a stitch to, do your bobbin work with, first of all, you're going to want to do a test sample, and then hang on that one spot just for a minute. I'll talk about that spot in a minute. But when you select a decorative stitch, you want to find something that's open space, no satin stitching, no areas of the decorative stitch where it stitches a lot of times in the same place. There's one exception, which I'll tell you in a second. But you can see those blue stitches, very open, made up of mostly straight stitches. That's what you want to look for. And then what I usually do is increase my stitch length. And I won't tell you by how much. I'll just tell you what I do. I tap the screen on the plus end once or twice. That just opens up the stitch a little bit more. And again, just leaves a little bit more space for that to form that stitch. I see a little question here. Lucy asked, worried about the screw, can it fall out? Well, you never are going to loosen or tighten that screw more than, maybe a half a turn, maybe 3/4 of a turn, maybe a full turn, but never enough that screw should be loose enough to come out. So it would take pretty good amount of turns to leftwise. Right-wise would be tighten it. Left would be loose.
Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey.
Yeah. So always just a teeny bit at a time and then test. You are going to experiment with this. You are going to take time playing around with it, which is a good thing. It's fun to do. And experiment with different stitches and do them on a sample of firm fabric. I'll usually take like just a firm fabric, maybe even denim, and then put tearaway stabilizer on the back. And you can even draw lines if you want to on your stabilizer. That's another big advantage of bobbin work. You can mark on your stabilizer, do all your stitching from the wrong side, and then when you're done, your stabilizer goes away and you have no markings on your fabric. That's red awesome. The red flower that is up at the top of the screen there, you should be able to find that in the luminaire. Yeah, you should find that in the luminaire. All of those stitches should be in the luminaire. So scooch up just a little bit where I had that one where you could see some tails kind of dangling.
I like this one.
With the green. Okay, and that's cream on cream, so it's a little hard to see, but that is my one. There's always exceptions to every rule, right? So I said look for open work stitches, straight stitches are best. You heard me say all that. Well, the stitch that I did there with the little cream colored flowers, that is what we call the star stitch. It's actually an heirloom stitch, and it's built right into your utility mode. It's the stitch that goes, I don't know how many, if there's like 6 spokes to it, but it goes from right to left and goes back into the center each time. That stitch, you don't really see the actual outline of the stitch when you do it with bobbin work. It just looks almost like a little rosette, and it's very, very, very pretty. So that is the one exception that I use, and I always make sure I do that with really soft thread. And you can also increase the width a little bit and increase the length a little bit of that stitch so that it doesn't build up too much there. But you see I have tails there. So that's another thing we need to talk about, because when you do bobbin work, all your stitching is done on, upside down. So you're going to have tails left of that embellishment thread left on the top side. Now, sometimes you can just clip those and use a little bit of seam sealant and seal it off that way. But if not, then what I do is I take a tapestry needle, a large-eyed needle, and I thread that tail through the needle and literally just poke it to, from the right side to the wrong side of the fabric. Yeah, they look like little roses, Charlene, exactly. But poke it right down, and then you could hand tie it in a knot, or you could weave it into your previous stitches. And you can also just use a little bit of seam sealant. So if anybody's ever done hand embroidery, cross stitch, crewel work, any of that, needlepoint, you are used to burying your tails. Right. And that's where you take a large-eyed needle and you just literally, weave that tail underneath some threads that are already there. And we'll talk about that in a second, Phyllis. Great question. And that's how you clean it up. So the top looks nice and neat. So what if your bobbin runs out? Well, first thing you're going to do is make more than one. Okay. And there is no real true way to judge. You're going to have to stitch some samples, and you're going to have to be prepared to have more bobbins depending on what you're doing. I will tell you that a fully wound bobbin of, especially the thinner, threads that aren't like the weight of the yarn, it goes pretty far. I've done a lot of stitching with this, but it's a great question, because what you would want to watch is if it's getting low, and you can see, you can peek under and look at your bobbin. If it's getting a little low, make sure you finish at a full pattern so that you can tie that one off and then begin again at the beginning of the stitch, so it will look seamless when you're all done.
Okay, so Joanne, I have to bring this up because I was just peeking at one more of your pictures. This is so cute.
That is a baby hat made with typical polar type fleece. And I just used that same yarn and stitched, from the wrong side. What I did to stabilize that particular fabric, because again, this is another thing, things pop into your head as you're talking about it. But whenever you do decorative stitching is what I like to call baby embroidery. In fact, this is a great technique for people that don't have an embroidery machine, don't have embroidery capability, and want to do, some similar effects. You're creating little tiny embroidery effects. But that means your fabric always has to be stabilized, because we would never do embroidery without some form of stabilizer unless we're stitching on something so incredibly stiff. So what I did with that is I took your favorite and my favorite, Angela, the adhesive-backed, water-soluble stabilizer from Brother. I love that. I use it so much. And I backed all of the pieces, because that was cut in, like, how if you've ever done a hat, they're like done in kind of a, what is that shape? Kind of a, little bit of a curved shape. And I cut all those pieces out. I put the water-soluble adhesive on the back, and then did all of my bobbin work stitching, and then constructed the hat. So it was all done while the pieces, but that kept that from stretching, because you don't want to have any movement. And the results were spectacular. So
definitely. Esther has a good question for you. She just wants to know, do you automatic cut when you're ready, or you cut by hand?
Thank you for asking that, Esther, because that's a very, very important point. You do not want to use your automatic thread cutter when you do bobbin work. So you want to sew as if you have no cutter on your machine and no cutter on your bobbin case where you put the thread in. So no cutting, because the thread would be too hard to, for that cutter to slice. And some of that thread separates a little bit. So absolutely make sure you do not put a piece of tape over it if you think you're going to accidentally touch that button, but do not use your thread cutter. That's one of the few parts of the do's and don'ts. Multi-needle embroidery machines, to my knowledge, there is no bobbin work type function for that. Again, you would need a different bobbin case. So yes, all of the work is done upside down, because featured thread is in the bobbin. If the featured thread is in the bobbin, it has to be done from, the opposite side.
And Stacy, I saw there's a few other people that rolled in a little bit late too. So don't worry, you can share this to your page if you're watching this on Facebook, or if you're on YouTube. You can go back to the Brothers Sews YouTube page to watch this. If you share it to your page for Facebook, then it'll always be there. So there was one question.
I love the questions because it shows that everybody's really thinking about it, and it really helps me remember some of the things that I might not think of to say. So.
Ginny has a good tip.
Yeah, Ginny's got to put tape over a cutter. I know. You get so used to it, It's one of those things we just automatically bink. So.
Imagine just wanted you to mention that stabilizer one more time.
I like to use, if I can, the adhesive-backed water-soluble stabilizer. So Brother has a really good one. It comes on a roll. It's got paper on it. You peel off the paper backing, and it sticks to your fabric. So it's a temporary adhesive. And then when you're all done, it literally washes away in warm water. We all have our own little methods, but it washes out really, really easily. So the stabilizer goes on the wrong side. You're stitching from the wrong side. Your stabilizer still goes on the wrong side. The only thing you're doing different, I mean, picture if you were going to do rows of decorative stitching on an item such as a tea towel, which I'm going to show in a minute here. But if you're going to do something like that, you would normally sew on the right side because you want your decorative stitches to sew on the right side, and your decorative thread is in your needle. This is just the complete opposite. So everything gets flipped over. The right side of your fabric faces the throat plate of your machine so that it's facing the bobbin, and all of the stitching that takes place comes from the bobbin.
That makes sense.
I did do the apron that way. I'm going to bring that a little closer while you're asking. Let me do that.
Sandra wants to know, should threads be brought to the top when starting?
You don't have to. You don't have to because you're going to deal with that tail at the end. So I realize this is a little crooked, but maybe you can pull that up.
Okay, let me bring you up.
We could see that. That is another example of bobbin work with a variety of different threads.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm actually working on a post on this that I'm going to have on my own website shortly. I just got a brand new apron so that I could do another one because I've had this one for a while. But it's just where I took and drew some lines that would mimic a bouquet, and then changed thread colors so that it kind of looked like leaves, flowers, little spray of fern greens, almost something like that. And then I just dressed it up with a little piece of ribbon. So, it's fun to play. It's fun to really try different techniques. You have so little to lose with this because you're only using a little bit of thread, and it goes a long way. So you can play on different samples and different swatches, and then use it on an actual project. So your end stitches don't get tied off. They get pulled from the right side to the wrong side, and then either woven in like you would, with a tapestry needle, tied off by hand, or with a little bit of seam sealant. That's how they're finished.
Mary wants to know if you have any particular size needle that you prefer when doing this.
You still use a normal standard size needle. The only other thing that because you just have regular sewing thread in the needle. You're not using anything different there. The only thing, there is one other thing that is recommended. And by the way, the Bobbin Work kit comes with a full manual that tells you everything to do. And that's also
and we all read those. Don't forget.
Of course. But if you want to reference something, but it does tell you to tighten your upper tension. And I'll tell you why you do that. When you're sewing with that looser bobbin case tension, your needle thread may show a little bit on the wrong side. So I usually tighten mine to about 6. You might even go a little higher than that. And it just, whenever you tighten something on the upper, which is your needle, it pulls it a little bit to the opposite side. So you just do that so that your needle thread doesn't show a little bit, and you wouldn't even know. You're not even noticing that you're doing it. You would never do that with normal thread in the top and bobbin. But when you've got that thick thread in the bobbin, it just helps keep that upper thread from showing. So yeah, Glenda, I see Glenda's question. If you put the pattern on the stabilizer, how could you see it if it's on the wrong side? Well, you draw on your stabilizer. You draw on your stabilizer, and then you layer it on the wrong side of your fabric. So you're looking at that drawing as you're stitching.
And Tabitha just had a quick question. Is there a different size bobbin that you use for this, or just the same bobbin?
Same bobbin. In fact, while we're talking about that, let me grab something because I don't know if everybody knows about these. This may be something that came with your machine. It's a bobbin clip, and these can be purchased separately at your brother dealer. That is because this thread, you see what's happening with mine? I mean, if I didn't do something with this, it's going to be what Angela calls a hot mess. So this clip that is specially designed by Brother, you can use to clip right over your bobbin. And you can actually daisy chain these together where you clip one to another so that they keep, but that's not, now that thread's not going to go anywhere. I love these. I use these, I use these for a lot of my bobbins that are wound with this decorative thread. So Okay.
That's great.
So again, and I will tell you that the video from some of the images that you showed on how to do all those different things is on it's on my YouTube channel, and it's an It's So Easy TV video, and it does show you some of the different things, so you get a better understanding of how this works by video. I think so many of us, we learn by seeing, we learn by doing, we learn by video, we learn by reading, and so if you can combine all that together, I think you'll get a clearer picture of it. But we do have a beautiful Bobbin Work project. The projector. Well, the projector would help you see the stitch. Definitely. Yeah, that would be a great idea, Lucy. That would be a great idea for your positioning, for sure. Yeah.
A lot of people are asking where to get the Bobbin Work kit. So if you call your local brother dealer, that's where you will find it. So
yeah, it's a brother dealer item. It's a brother dealer item, and you do want the special bobbin case. And then the nice thing is, brother made it so that it's gray. So I'm never, ever, ever going to get confused between this one and the standard bobbin case. So as long as I know I have this, if I, let's say I do bobbin work and then I walk away from my machine for a week. Well, we all know what's going to happen. My machine's going to cry. It's going to think I'm terrible. But if I walk away from it and I come back and I don't realize that I left that in there, I'm going to want to change that to my normal bobbin case. Seeing that it's gray and totally different than the original bobbin case is going to be, obvious, so that I know I need to switch that out and put the normal one back in.
All right, let me just scan a few more of these. So some of these are repeat questions. I'm not going to answer those again. You can go back and watch the whole thing over again because she gave so many good tips on there.
So how about a nice project that would actually show how this all works and give you some tips and give you a free design to go with it. That is coming soon. I would say any day on the Brother site, it will be live. So you're getting a sneak peek at it today. Let me show you the actual project. And then I know, Angela, you have some pictures. So what I did is I decorated ribbon with bobbin work and then simply straight stitched it, top stitched it onto the towel for decoration. And that lovely sunflower design is the free Brother embroidery design of the month. So that will be available, like I said, any day. So free design for September. It's just a nice light fill stitch. So I'll show you the wrong side. You don't get to see the wrong side all the time. So I'll show you the wrong side. Nice, clean stitch. So what I did is I did all my decorative stitching with the bobbin work on the ribbon. Here's a little swatch of it before I put it onto the towel. So you can, again, not getting three-dimensional here, but that's bumpy, and that was done with a serger type decorative thread. And if you can see the wrong side, you see what that looks like? Looks like normal standard decorative stitching. Okay, so that's the wrong side of my ribbon, but when I was stitching, it would have been placed this way. So the side that looks like normal stitching would be facing me, but because that thick thread is in the bobbin, this would be on facing the throat plate of the machine, and then that would create that beautiful, beautiful look. So this is I've always called it pearl cotton, and it is available on spools. I think you have a picture of that, where I have the actual like a tan colored thread and a bobbin wound to match. So maybe you can find that.
I was looking for that. I don't have that picture. I do have one thing I want to bring up while I'm looking for, because I just had 4 pictures. So maybe
there was another folder. There was another folder.
Oh, I'll go in the other folder. But while I'm doing that,
Okay.
Can I bring this up for you? Because
Sure.
You might want to mention this is on. First of all, this is what it looks like. I was looking for a photo online. It's on your tip sheet that you can get.
Yes, that's on my Let's Go Sew website. You will find a tip sheet,
And there's the video. If I click right there, right?
Yep, sure is.
Great.
So Brother has a short video, and then again, I have one on my YouTube channel, so you can see it all in action. Because you do pull that thread up. I might have missed saying that, and maybe when somebody asked that question, I might not have understood it correctly. But you do pull the thread up from the bobbin case, just like you would for standard sewing. I guess we don't really do that very often, do we? We would just rely on the machine to pull it up. And she didn't put hers all the way through the cutter, or all the way through the channel up to the cutter. I usually do. All roads lead to Rome. You're going to get the same place. I just like to pull it a little bit further. We all have our own little ways of doing things, but you do want to pull that up so that thread is engaged and ready to stitch.
All right, I have your other folder too. It's just downloading real quick. I didn't even see the second folder. Sorry about that, Joanne.
Yeah, and that's okay. And they're showing poking a hole. If you can't feed the needle through your fabric in order to get the thread through, you can do that. You can make a hole. I personally have never found that necessary. I've always been able to just poke the hole with my needle once I'm finished. She's pulling the thread to the wrong side. I usually don't do that either. So then, if we were all in a room together sewing and we all were, given the same instruction sheet, I bet you any money we're all going to do it 20,000 different ways, right?
Oh, definitely.
Oh,
good idea. Pat says it'd be great for a jacket.
Oh, it would. I could see it on one of your beautiful Chanel jackets,
Oh,
Chanel
yes.
style. Yep. Or top stitching. You can use it even just for top stitching because it works beautiful with a straight stitch. And you see she increased the tension. There she went all the way up to 8. I rarely go that high, but again, it depends on what you're doing.
Did you want me to keep playing it? I'm just going to send them to your website.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, that's great. That's great. So the whole idea there though is again that you're gonna experiment a little bit, and you're gonna find some stitches that you like, some that you're maybe not as thrilled out. So let me show you another little sample I did before I created that Bobbin Work tea towel. Maybe you can.
So I also have I did get your other folders. So did you want me to show that one up close that you have here?
Sure. Let's show this one first, just real quick, so you could see this one.
Oh, that's cool.
So all I did here is I selected stitches that, again, fit my criteria. Now, if we were doing a little pop quiz today, I would say, what do you look for in a stitch when you're going to do bobbin work? Let's see if we get some answers here. Very simple. I'll give you the answer. You look for open stitches that have no satin stitching and mostly straight stitches so that it has a nice open area. So each one of these fits that criteria, and really any one of these would have been beautiful on that tea towel. I just settled on, I think, this one at the very end, which matches that piece that I already showed you. Just kind of a cross stitch look almost. So yep, you don't want anything close together because you need room for that thicker thread to move. So did you find the one picture that has shows the spool sitting on the machine with the
I sure did.
Okay, why don't we pop that one up?
I'm trainable slowly, but I'm there.
Okay, there you go. All right, so you can see that the tail, I have gone all the way through that channel, but I stopped where the cutter is. The cutter is at that last little spot. Yeah, exactly. So you can see the thread that I used. It's again, it's the same type of spool that I showed before, but it's what I call a pearl cotton. Now, that's on a spool. I don't know if you've visited your local fabric store lately or gone into a shop where they sell hand embroidery, but you can buy pearl cotton type on a skein. And then again, you would do the same thing that I did with that chunky yarn. You would hand wind it, and you're going to get a virtually identical look. So that's a really nice way to start off if you can't find serger threads. I know not everybody lives close by a shop, or not all the shops have those threads in stock. So you can use pearl cotton that would normally be used for hand embroidery, not to be confused with embroidery floss. You don't want to use embroidery floss because it doesn't fit the criteria that I gave at the beginning, which is, that it's smooth and even and doesn't separate easily. You don't want something that separates easily, and regular embroidery floss separates completely. Alphabets, great question. Well, I wouldn't use built-in alphabets in the machine because a lot of them are pretty short stitches, but you could very easily, you could find, a stencil or a letter and trace it. Now, I got to think, because I've never really, you'd have to do it mirror image, right? Because it's going to flip to the other side. And do it mirror image, and trace that onto your stabilizer or onto the wrong side of your fabric, and just sew around that with a straight stitch, and you're going to have a really, really special look. That's a great idea, Jen. That's a great idea. So there you see the
quick question on here from, do you go through the tension?
Yes, you go through the tension. So when I showed the one where I put that that spool or that bobbin in the bobbin case, let me pop it in here one more time. You do it just like you would a normal bobbin thread. Just like you would. You go just like you would, all the way through, exactly the same. Exactly the same. In fact, you do everything exactly the same, except when you're finishing the path for threading your bobbin like you normally would, you just don't cut. Everything else you do exactly the same. So there's nothing special about that.
I saw someone earlier ask, and this is a great question, because sometimes you have in your machine 2 bobbins. Doesn't mean that one is actually for bobbin work, but there's one that's, someone mentioned a purple dot and one with a green dot.
The secondary bobbin case, it's funny because when I worked in a sewing shop, we always called that the just in case bobbin case. The just in case bobbin case is an extra bobbin case that if you've got that with your machine, it's designed for other types of bobbin thread other than the standard brother weight bobbin thread. There's a lot of different bobbin threads out there. I'll give you my true to life story. Personally, I have never, ever, ever used that just in case bobbin case because I use nothing but brother bobbin thread. My machine has never tasted anything other than brother bobbin thread. I buy it in black, I buy it in white, and occasionally I'll use regular embroidery thread if I'm doing lace like your collection. But for normal embroidery, I always use the brother bobbin thread. It's foolproof, and that's what your machine was set up for. If you veer off of that, they wanted to provide a route for you to have a bobbin case with alternative tension for handling other types of bobbin threads. It's a little tricky though. So there's the finished project. That, like I said, you'll see that posted on the Brother Sews blog.Brother Sews site any day now, and it will give you all of the instructions for how I did that, along with that beautiful free design. Isn't that a gorgeous design?
I love it.
It's perfect for this time of year. You'll see.
So the center, this is the free design, the one that's in the center, right?
Mm-hmm. That'll be available on the site.
I have to tell you, that actually looks like hand beading on the inside.
Yeah.
I'm looking closely. I'm like, that looks like hand beading. I love it.
It almost has a texture like French knots in that area, but the rest of that is all really, really light fill.
French knots.
And you could see, I'm going to wrinkle this, but you could see how soft that is. That's what you want on a tea towel, because this is not a very heavy weight, and you want something that's a rather lightweight design. So, but look how neat that looks on the wrong side when you do that technique on the ribbon. I'm a huge fan of doing decorative stitching and even embroidery on grosgrain ribbon and then applying it to my project, because again, you're not seeing anything then on the back side, and you can find this ribbon in so many different colors. It's something I've done for years. If you go through my projects, you're going to see me use that technique over and over and over and over again, because I love it. When I love a technique, I repeat it.
Hey, Lucy wants to know, do you buy pre-wound brother thread?
I do. Mm-hmm. I buy it both ways. I buy the pre-wound so that if I'm in a hurry, they're already done. They're, like a box of macaroni and cheese. They're good to go when you need it. But I also buy it on the spool.
Glenda has a great question too. Would that work for elastic in the bobbin thread?
I don't use this bobbin case for elastic thread. When I've done elastic thread technique, I use the standard bobbin case. So that's we could do that, another topic for another day, smocking with elastic thread. I've done that on
that's too. Yeah. One of my favorite. I'd like to do it in the cover stitch machine.
That would be interesting. Yeah, I've done that. I have. Yeah, Yep, with the chain stitch, and then you can make a smocked effect with that. Yeah, there's so many neat things that you can do. Oh,
And just a couple more questions because we're just about out of time. So you can always message Joanne too, and all of free tips is on her website, and then the blog.brothersews.com, which I'll put that website up here, as you can see. That's where this will be in just a few days. So
yep, and you can always get a hold of me through my website, letsgosew.com. I answer all my emails.
Did you use stabilizer on the ribbon?
You'll see in the instructions, I do call for stabilizer. In this particular case, I used a liquid stabilizer so that my ribbon was really nice and stiff like paper, and I didn't have to have anything to take away on the wrong side. That worked really well. So just the liquid stabilizer works well for that.
And they're all saying, please do a show on smocking.
Okay, we can do that. You can do the cover hem, and you can do it with the cover hem machine, and I can do it with the standard machine.
And then here from Louise.
Built-in stitches, Lois. Yep, absolutely. Just built-in stitches, which there's so many to choose from.
Yeah, and the other thing is, a lot of people were asking, is this only on the Luminaire? No.
Nope. Nope. If you go to the Brother website, the brothersews.com, and you search for the Bobbin Kate, the Bobbin Work kit, and actually, I think in my instructions I have a link to it. You'll see a whole list of available machines that it will work with. Keep in mind those lists don't get updated really frequently, so the next best thing to do is to call your local Brother dealer and tell them what model you have and ask them if they can tell you if that will work. It's all a matter of the bobbin case cover. If your bobbin case cover is the most common one that we find on Brother machines, then the bobbin case will work.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm just going to bring up, this is the Brother, in case you guys don't know, there are so many free things on this website. So blog.brothersews.com.
Great project.
All of these projects.
Yeah.
Very
so
fun.
Many people contribute to that with great ideas, and there's truly something for everybody there. Truly something for everybody.
Totally agree. So by the way, we should let you guys know that next week we have a really exciting show planned for you on Thursday. Joanne will be back. Cindy Hogan will be back. We have a whole list of people that are going to be joining, because guess what? We were able to get the video from B2B, which, if you don't know what that was a few weeks ago. That's a dealer exclusive event where they talked about all the new products, the Luminaire, the Scan and Cut, all the new accessories. Well, we were able to get our hands on that video, and now we have permission to play it. So next Thursday at noon, mark your calendar, 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. It might be a little bit longer show, but we are going to play that video. We'll take breaks in between to take your questions about the new products, give you our thoughts on things that we've been trying and experimenting with. But this is the first time ever, because the B2B event is exclusive for dealers. So we said, could we have that video? Because we're trying to explain all the new stuff, and I think it'd be really awesome if they could see what went on behind the curtain. So we have the video. We're ready for it. So mark your calendar, next Thursday, 12 o'clock, noon Eastern Standard Time, which is going to be a lot of fun, Joanne. I'm looking forward to
Very special day. Very special day. A lot of great guests, too.
Special guests will be joining us. So keep an eye on notes of who's coming if you're interested. Otherwise, just join us and you'll be surprised, right?
They'll be able to learn all the new things all in one short period of time and see everything demonstrated, and then we can talk about it. We can chat about it, which would be great fun.
Definitely. Well, everyone, I hope you have a great weekend, although it's Thursday, but won't be seeing you again until next week. And it's a holiday week for all of us here in the United States, which is awesome. And Joanne, I hope you have a great weekend.
Thanks for having me on, and happy sewing to everybody. It's been great to be with you today.
Definitely. And thank you for such a fun project. I'm very excited. Now I have to go get my kit out, because I've always thought about doing it, but I haven't yet. So now I'm even inspired.
Be careful. Once you get started, it's hard to stop. It's too much fun.
Definitely. All right. Bye, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Happy sewing.
And yes, Shirley, you can watch this video or any video. This is on Brother Facebook. Share it to your page and it'll always be there, or go to Brother YouTube page, whichever one you're watching from. All right. See ya.